If you think the world is run by politicians and billionaires, you haven't been paying attention to the shadows. In the city of obsidians and glass, in the boardrooms where the air is filtered and the handshakes are firm, there is a second currency. It's older than money. It's heavier than gold. Strength. Welcome to the Blackwood estate. It doesn't look like a werewolf den. It looks like a fortress of brutalist concrete and rain-slicked steel, jutting out of the skyline like a monument to cold, hard power. This is where the Blackwood Pack runs the city's tech sector. They don't howl at the moon. They check stock tickers. They don't hunt in the woods. They hunt in hostile takeovers. And in this world, weakness isn't just a flaw. It is a death sentence. My name is Ivy Vance. And in the grand, terrifying hierarchy of the Blackwood Pack, I am nothing. I am the dust on the floorboards. I am the silence between the heartbeats. I am an omega, a wolf without a bite, and tonight, my job is to make sure the marble floors of the Grand Hall are spotless enough for $5,000 stilettos to walk over without noticing I exist. Tonight is the Ascension Gala. The air smells of ozone, expensive rain, and the terrifying, musky scent of predator pheromones. Outside, a parade of black armored SUVs is depositing the city's elite. Inside, they are waiting for the coronation. Julian Blackwood, the golden boy, the charismatic second son, is being named the official heir, but everyone knows the truth. They are here to dance on the grave of the rightful king. They say a ghost haunts the west wing of the estate, but he isn't dead. He's just erased. Roman Blackwood. 3 years ago, he was the prince of the city. He was lethal. It's a brilliant, the kind of alpha who could silence a room just by walking into it. Then came the crash, the twisted metal on the interstate, the surgery that failed, the rumors that his connection to his wolf had been severed, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. In a human family, that's a tragedy. In the Blackwood Pack, it's a disposal notice. I scrub a scuff mark near the entrance, keeping my head down. Protocol says the help doesn't make eye contact, but I see them. I see the way the high society lunas preen in their crimson and midnight blue gowns, teeth flashing white, eyes scanning for weakness. And then, the music shifts. The chatter dees. A hush falls over the room that is heavy, suffocating, and thick with judgment. He enters. He isn't walking. He glides in on a custom titanium wheelchair that looks less like medical equipment and more like a weapon. Roman Blackwood. Even sitting down, he destroys the air in the room. He's wearing a tuxedo that costs more than my entire life's earnings, cut to fit broad shoulders that haven't lost an ounce of muscle. His face is a mask of bored indifference, sharp jawline, dark hair swept back, eyes the color of a stormy sea, but his legs are motionless. The crowd parts, not out of respect, but out of awkwardness. It's the Red Sea of pity. I watch from the shadows of a pillar. I see his father, Alpha Marcus, standing on the balcony with Julian. Marcus doesn't even look down. He looks through his eldest son, as if Roman is a smudge on the window pane. That's the cruelty of it. They didn't kill him. They just decided he stopped existing. Roman rolls toward the corner. Near the artisanal espresso bar, a modern touch for the tech elite who run on caffeine and ambition. He clearly hates being here. You can see the tension in his neck, the way his fingers drum a silent, lethal rhythm on the armrest of his chair. He is an apex predator in a cage, and the cage is his own body. And then, she makes her move. Sloane Vander Hoven, the heiress to a shipping fortune, dressed in silver silk that leaves nothing to the imagination. She's been vying for the spot of Luna for years. She was rumored to be Roman's intended mate before the accident. Now she looks at him like he's a broken toy she returned to the store. I grip my serving tray tighter. I shouldn't be watching. I should be invisible. But I can't look away. Sloane saunters over to him, flanked by two giggling friends. She holds a steaming porcelain cup of espresso double shot. Extra hot. I know. Because I saw the barista pull it seconds ago. Roman. She purrs, her voice carrying over the low hum of the jazz quartet. I didn't think you'd show. Isn't it past your bedtime? I hear the nurses get cranky if you miss your sponge bath. The cruelty is so sharp it almost cuts the skin. The women around her titter behind their hands. Roman doesn't blink. He stares at the middle distance, swirling a glass of sparkling water he hasn't touched. Go away. Sloane, he says. His voice is a low rumble, rusty from disuse, but deep. It vibrates in your chest. You're boring me. Sloane's smile falters. Her ego is fragile, and he just stepped on it. She leans in, eyes narrowing. Boring, that's rich coming from the man who hasn't left his room in 3 years. You're useless. Roman. A paperweight, she pretends to stumble. It's a bad performance. Theater for the cheap seats. She lurches forward, and her wrist flicks. It's deliberate, calculated, the contents of the cup boiling hot. Black liquid splashed directly onto Roman's lap. The dark stain spreads instantly across his crisp tuxedo trousers. Steam rises from the fabric. The entire ballroom goes dead silent. A gasp ripples through the crowd. But nobody moves. Nobody helps. They are wolves waiting to see if the wounded animal bleeds. Sloane straightens up, feigning shock, a hand over her mouth. Oops. She laughs, the sound brittle and high. My bad. But hey, it's not like you can feel the burn. Right. Roman, I see it then. Because I'm watching him. Not her. I see Roman's hand grip the metal armrest of his chair. His knuckles turn bone white. The titanium groans under the pressure. A vein in his temple throbs. He feels it. He feels every single scorching drop burning his skin. But he sits there, stone-faced, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a flinch. He would rather burn alive than show them pain. Something inside me snaps. It's not bravery. Bravery implies I have a plan. This is pure, unadulterated stupidity mixed with a rage I didn't know I had. I am an omega. I am invisible. But I cannot watch this. I step out of the shadows. I walk straight through the circle of high society predators. My rubber-soled work shoes squeak on the marble, a jarring sound against the elegant silence. I don't stop until I am standing directly between Sloane and Roman. I drop my serving tray on a nearby table with a loud clatter. I pull the white towel from my waistband, a lowly, stained rag used for wiping up spills. And I drop it. Splat. It lands right on top of Sloane's $5,000 custom crystal-encrusted heels. Oh, I am so sorry. I say, my voice trembling but loud enough to be heard. I thought I saw some trash on the floor. The silence stretches, tight as a bowstring. Sloane looks down at her ruined shoes, then up at me. Her face turns a violent shade of violet. You filthy little rat. The coffee, I say, pointing at Roman's lap, refusing to back down. You spilled it. On purpose. And now you're standing in the mess. Sloane's eyes go wide. Do you know who I am? You're just the help. You're nothing. And you. I shoot back, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Are a bully in a designer dress. He's the alpha's son. Show some respect. The air pressure in the room drops. I've just committed social suicide. Maybe actual suicide. Sloane's hand flies up. She's going to strike me. I flinch, bracing for the blow, closing my eyes, but the blow never lands. A hand catches Sloane's wrist in midair. I open my eyes. It's Roman. He hasn't stood up, he can't, but his reaction time was faster than a cobra strike. He reached out from his chair, across my body, to intercept her. His arm is locked out, rigid as a steel bar, and then his other hand, the one bracing him, brushes against my bare forearm. It's not a touch. It's a collision. A shockwave slams into me. Stronger than a taser. It zaps up my arm, down my spine, and settles in my gut like molten lead. I gasp. Roman's head snaps toward me. For a second, just a split second, the bored, dead look in his eyes vanishes. The stormy gray swirls. And suddenly, a flash of liquid. Incandescent gold floods his irises. It's the color of a sunrise. It's the color of a wolf waking up from a 3-year coma. He stares at me, and I stare at him, and the rest of the room melts into background noise. He looks shocked, confused, and hungry. Then, he remembers where he is. The gold fades back to gray, but the intensity remains. He turns his head slowly back to Sloane, his grip on her wrist tightening until she whimpers. The bones in her wrist grind audibly. "Let go," Sloane shrieks, trying to pull away. "You're hurting me." Roman doesn't let go. He pulls her down slightly, forcing her to look him in the eye. When he speaks, his voice isn't a rusty rumble anymore. It's cold, precise, and laced with a terrifying authority that hasn't been heard in this hall for years. "You can insult me, Sloane," Roman says, his words cutting through the room like a scalpel. "You can pour coffee on me. You can laugh at my legs. I don't care." He shoves her arm away with enough force that she stumbles back, nearly falling in her ruined shoes. "But," Roman continues, his eyes locking onto mine for a brief moment before turning back to the terrified heiress. "If you touch the help again, if you even look at her, I will buy your father's shipping company tomorrow morning just for the pleasure of firing you." He pauses, letting the threat hang in the air, heavy and absolute. "Now," he commands, pointing a finger at the door. "Get out of my sight." 5 minutes. That's how long it took for my life to implode. The catering manager didn't even drag me to an office. He just shoved a trash bag at my chest right there in the service corridor, his face purple with the kind of rage middle management types reserve for people they know can't fight back. "You're done, Vance," he spat, flecks of spittle hitting my cheek. "You assaulted a guest. A VIP. You're lucky Miss Vanderhoven isn't pressing charges. Get off the property before I call security to throw you into the ravine." He didn't pay me for the night. He didn't care that I had rent due in 3 days or that my little sister, Chloe, had a prescription waiting at the pharmacy that cost more than my car. He just pointed at the door. So, I walked. The driveway of the Blackwood estate is 3 miles long, a winding ribbon of asphalt cutting through dense, ancient forest. And of course, the sky decided to mourn with me. The rain came down in sheets, cold and biting, soaking through my thin polyester uniform instantly. My cheap shoes squelched with every step. A wet, rhythmic reminder of how low I'd fallen. I hugged my arms around my chest, shivering violently. I was 23 years old, drenched, broke, and walking down a dark road in wolf territory with nothing to my name but a wet trash bag of dirty laundry. I thought about Chloe. I thought about the text message I'd have to send her saying I couldn't pick up her meds. The shame burned hotter than the cold rain. Then, the darkness behind me shattered. Twin beams of halogen light cut through the downpour, casting long, warped shadows against the trees. The low hum of a high-performance engine vibrated through the asphalt and up into the soles of my feet. I stepped onto the grass, expecting the vehicle to speed past. It didn't. A massive, black armored SUV slowed to a crawl beside me. It looked like a tank designed by a fashion house, sleek, menacing, and bulletproof. The passenger window rolled down with a smooth, electronic whir. I stopped breathing. It wasn't a driver. It was him. Roman. He was sitting in the back, still in that coffee-stained tuxedo. his face illuminated by the soft blue glow of a tablet in his lap. He didn't look at me at first. He just tapped something on the screen. His profile sharp and unyielding against the gloom. "Get in," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the sound of the rain like a knife. I stood there, water dripping off my nose. "I'm fine," I lead, my teeth chattering. "I like the walk." Roman finally turned his head. His eyes were back to that stormy gray. The gold from the ballroom gone. But the intensity was still there, simmering under the surface. "It's 5 miles to the main gate, Ivy, and Julian's security detail sweeps this road in 10 minutes. If they find you, they won't offer you a ride." He knew my name. The exiled prince knew my name. "Why do you care?" I asked, gripping my trash bag. "I'm just the help. Ex-help. Get in." It was a command, not a request. The door lock clicked, and the heavy door swung open automatically. I looked at the dark road ahead. I looked at the warm, leather-clad interior of the car. Survival instinct won. I climbed in, the door sealed shut, cutting off the noise of the storm instantly. The air inside smelled expensive leather, ozone, and him. A scent like cedarwood and cold rain. I tried to squeeze myself into the corner, conscious of my dripping clothes ruining the upholstery. "You're dripping on the Italian leather," Roman noted, not looking up from his tablet. "I can get out," I snapped, adrenaline making me bold. "Stay," he said. "See less. Take us to the West Wing." Private entrance. The driver, a massive man who looked like he chewed rocks for breakfast, nodded silently. The car surged forward. We didn't speak for the rest of the drive. Roman typed furiously on his device, ignoring me completely. I used the time to study him. Up close, he looked exhausted. There were shadows under his eyes that spoke of chronic pain, and a tightness in his jaw that never relaxed. He was a broken thing. When the car stopped, we weren't at the front of the house. We were at a side entrance. A sleek glass purity that looked more like the entrance to a laboratory than a home. Silas unloaded Roman's wheelchair from the trunk with practiced efficiency. I moved to help, but Roman shot me a look that froze me in place. "I don't need a nurse," he said, maneuvering himself from the car seat to the chair. It was a struggle. I watched the muscles in his arms cord and strain, the sheer upper body strength required to drag his dead weight across the gap. He landed in the chair with a heavy thud, took a breath, and then spun around to face me. "Follow me." I expected a hospital room. I expected medical equipment, the smell of antiseptic, maybe a nurse station. What I walked into was a command center. Double doors hissed open to reveal a massive, open-plan penthouse dominated by technology. The far wall was entirely glass, overlooking the city skyline, but the other walls were lined with banks of humming servers. 6 large monitors hung suspended in the air, displaying a dizzying array of data live security feeds from every corner of the estate. Scrolling lines of code, and stock market tickers moving so fast they blurred. It was cool, blue-lit, and intimidating. This wasn't where a cripple went to hide. This was where a general went to wage war. "Welcome to the cave," Roman said, rolling toward a massive desk made of black glass. "Close your mouth, Ivy. You'll catch flies." I snapped my jaw shut. "What is all this?" I thought. "You thought I sat in the dark listening to sad violin music and mourning my lost legs." Roman spun his chair around, his expression sardonic. "That's what they all think. That's what I want them to think." He gestured to the screens. "My father is the alpha." He shakes the hands. He kisses the babies. He roars at the meetings. But this, he tapped the desk. "This is the logistics. The Blackwood Pack isn't just a werewolf hierarchy. It's a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. I manage the shadow accounts, I route the supply chains. I control the money. He looked at me, his eyes gleaming. Julian thinks power is being able to punch the hardest. Power is deciding whether or not Julian's credit cards work tomorrow morning. I walked further into the room, mesmerized. Why show me this? I'm nobody. Exactly, Roman said. He rolled closer, stopping just a few feet from me. You're nobody. You're an omega. In this house, you're less than furniture. People talk in front of you because they don't think you have the brain capacity to understand them. They leave documents out because they don't think you matter. He leaned forward, the wheels of his chair creaking slightly. I need that invisibility. I can't leave this wing. Ivy, not without an entourage. Not without drawing attention. I need eyes and ears out there. I need hands that can go where mine can't. You want a spy? I whispered. I want a body man. He corrected. A personalaide. Someone to push the chair. Sure. But mostly someone to be my proxy. I can't. I shook my head, backing away. You saw what happened tonight. I got fired. I made a scene. I'm not exactly invisible anymore. I bought the catering company 5 minutes ago, Roman said casually, as if he were discussing the weather. Mr. Henderson is currently explaining to his wife why his pension fund just evaporated. You work for me now. I stared at him. You bought the company. I solve problems. He shrugged. But there's something you need to know before you say yes. Something dangerous. His demeanor shifted. The arrogance dropped, replaced by something darker, more vulnerable. He unbuttoned his cuff and rolled up his sleeve. I stepped closer. His arm was muscular, tanned, but veins stood out in stark relief. They weren't blue. They were black. A spiderweb of dark lines pulsing faintly under the skin. The car accident 3 years ago crushed my spine, Roman said, his voice devoid of emotion. Or so the medical report says. But spinal nerves don't turn black. I gasped. What is it? A hybrid strain of wolfsbane and a neurotoxin derived from pufferfish. He said, it's being slipped into my food. My water. Maybe even the air in this house. It's a paralytic. It keeps the wolf dormant and the nerves deadened. Horror washed over me, cold and fast. Someone is poisoning you. Who? Everyone. Roman laughed darkly. My stepmother. My brother. Maybe my father. As long as I'm paralyzed. I'm not a threat to Julian's succession. But they can't kill me. Because killing a family member brings an investigation from the High Council. So, they keep me. Anis, he looked up at me, his eyes searching my face. I'm not just paralyzed. Ivy, I'm being kept this way. And if I eat anything prepared by the main kitchen, I stay this way. I need someone to source my food. Someone to watch my back. Someone who isn't on their payroll. Why trust me, I asked. You don't know me. I know you stood between me and Sloane Vanderhoven when my own father wouldn't look at me. Roman said softly. I know you risked your livelihood for a stranger who couldn't offer you anything. He tapped the tablet again and spun it around to face me. And I know about Chloe. The air left my lungs. On the screen was a dossier, my file, and next to it, a photo of my sister in her hospital bed, Chloe Vance, 17, diagnosed with severe autoimmune rejection syndrome. Roman read, current debt $200,000. Treatment status stalled due to lack of funds. Don't, I warned, my voice shaking. Don't bring her into this. I already paid it. Roman said. I froze. What? I transferred the funds to the hospital while we were in the car. Her treatment starts tomorrow. Private room. Top specialists. Paid in full for the next 5 years. He leaned back in his chair, watching me. It wasn't a kindness. It was a transaction. It was a trap. You work for me, Roman said. And she lives. You become my eyes, my hands, and my spy. You help me find proof of who is poisoning me so I can burn them to the ground. And in exchange, your sister gets to grow up. I looked at the screen. I looked at the black veins in his arm. I looked at the man who was half machine, half monster, and entirely alone in a glass tower. I thought about the rain outside. I thought about the way his hand had felt on my arm, that jolt of electricity. I'm not a nurse, I whispered. I don't know how to take care of this. I don't need a nurse, Roman said, his gaze dropping to my lips for a fraction of a second before snapping back to my eyes. I need a partner. Do we have a deal? Ivy, I took a breath, inhaling the scent of cedar and danger. Deal, I said. Roman smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf who just realized the cage door was unlocked. Good, he said, turning back to his screens. Get some sleep, Ivy. Tomorrow, we go to war. We fell into a routine. The kind of rhythm that develops between a prisoner and their guard, though I was never quite sure which one of us was the prisoner. By day, I was the ghost in the machine. I moved through the estate with my head down, scrubbing floors, delivering coffee, and planting the tiny, microscopic listening devices Roman built in his lab. By night, I retreated to the West Wing, the glass fortress where the exiled prince waged his silent war. But the war wasn't just about data streams and bank accounts. It was about the man in the chair. It had been 2 weeks. 2 weeks of watching Roman Blackwood exist in a state of suspended agony. The neurotoxin didn't just paralyze him, it froze him. His skin was always cold to the touch, like marble left out in the snow. Time for the transfer, Roman said. It was late. The city lights below were a blur of neon through the rain-streaked glass. He had wheeled himself to the side of the massive, low-profile bed. But the gap between the chair and the mattress might as well have been a canyon. I've got you, I said, stepping into his personal space. This was the part of the job that wasn't in the contract. The intimacy of it was suffocating. To move him, I had to stand between his knees. I had to wrap my arms around his torso while he locked his hands behind my neck. On 3, I whispered. 1, 2, 3, he pulled. I lifted. For a man whose legs were dead weight, his upper body was terrifyingly strong. The muscles in his back coiled like steel cables under his shirt as he hoisted his own weight. I braced my legs, gritting my teeth against the strain, pivoting us both. For a heartbeat, we were suspended there, chest to chest, breath mingling. He smelled of expensive sandalwood soap and the ozone of overheating servers. We landed on the mattress with a soft thud. Roman exhaled, a sharp hiss of frustration. He hated this. He hated the dependency. He dragged his legs onto the bed with his hands, arranging them straight, his jaw set in a line of grim determination. The spasms are starting, he gritted out, squeezing his eyes shut. The toxin. It spikes at night. I looked at his legs, under the gray sweatpants. I could see the muscles twitching violently, not from control, but from the nervous system misfiring. The black veins on his ankles were pulsing, angry and dark. I can get the heating pads, I offered. No, Roman gasped, his hand gripping the sheets. They don't help. Nothing helps. I didn't think. I just acted. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the strange, magnetic pull that had been growing between us since the ballroom. I sat on the edge of the bed and placed my hands directly on his shins. Ivy, don't, he warned, his voice tight. It's dangerous to touch the site of the infection. Hush, I said. I began to massage the knotting muscle. My hands were small, rough from years of scrubbing floors. but they were warm. I worked my thumbs into the calf muscle, trying to soothe the violent tremors, and then it happened. The moment my skin fully connected with his, a jolt went through the room. It wasn't the static shock from the party. It was a hum, a low-frequency vibration that seemed to rattle the teeth in my skull, under my palms. The black veins didn't just pulse, they retreated. The angry, dark web began to shrink, fading from ink black to a bruised purple, then to pale skin. Roman's eyes snapped open. He stared at the ceiling, his mouth slightly open, his breathing ragged. When I pulled my hands back, terrified I'd hurt him. "Did I hurt you? Don't stop," he rasped. It was a plea, a desperate, raw command. "Ivy, put your hands back." I hesitated, then resumed the rhythm. Kneading, pressing. With every stroke, the tension drained out of his body. The violent spasms ceased. The coldness that radiated off him began to dissipate, replaced by a rising heat that flushed his skin. Suddenly, the big toe on his right foot twitched. It was microscopic, a flutter, but we both saw it. Roman sat up, bracing himself on his elbows, staring at his foot like it was a foreign object. He looked at his toes. Then he looked at me. The storm in his gray eyes had cleared, leaving them wide and vulnerable. "You," he whispered. "It's you. I'm just massaging it," I stammered, my heart hammering against my ribs. "No," Roman said. He reached out, covering my hand with his. His hand was huge, engulfing mine, and for the first time in 2 weeks, his fingers were warm, searingly warm. "The doctors have pumped me full of every antidote in the book. Nothing worked, but you touch me, and the poison retreats." He pulled me closer. I let him. I leaned in until our foreheads were almost touching. "For 3 years," Roman admitted, his voice cracking, "I have felt nothing but cold. It's like being buried alive in ice. I couldn't feel the sheets. I couldn't feel the water." He brought my hand up to his cheek, pressing his face into my palm. "Until you," he breathed. "You make the cold stop." The air in the room was charged, heavy with unspoken words like mate and bond. But we didn't say them. We couldn't, because if we acknowledged it, if we admitted that an invisible Omega was the fated cure for the broken Alpha, we would both be dead before sunrise. "We need proof," Roman said suddenly, pulling away, the vulnerability vanishing behind a mask of tactical focus. "If you can heal me, it means the toxin is biological. It means someone is buying it. And if they're buying it, there's a receipt." He looked at the clock on the wall. 2:00 a.m. "Julian is at the casino tonight," Roman said, his eyes hardening into gold-flecked flint. "His office is empty. Tonight, Ivy, we finish this." 20 minutes later, I was no longer the nurse. I was the thief. I moved through the ventilation ducts of the East Wing, dressed in black fatigues I'd found in Roman's closet. They were too big, rolled up at the cuffs, but they made me feel like a shadow. "Take the left fork." Roman's voice crackled in my ear. It was clear, calm, and grounding. Even though he was physically stuck in his bed in the West Wing, his voice was right there inside my head. "The thermal sensors on the right are active." "I see it," I whispered, crawling over a bundle of fiber optic cables. "I'm over the office now. Drop down. You have 90 seconds before the patrol loops back." I unlatched the vent cover and lowered myself into Julian's office. It smelled of expensive leather, stale cigar smoke, and arrogance. Everything was mahogany and gold, a stark contrast to Roman's glass and steel cave. "Check the safe behind the portrait," Roman instructed. "I'm looping the camera feed now. You're invisible." I moved to the painting, a ridiculous oil portrait of Julian holding a hunting rifle. I swung it aside. It's a biometric scanner. I can't open this. You don't need to. Roman said, the sound of keyboard clacking, echoing in the earpiece. I pulled Julian's prints off a wine glass 3 years ago. Sending the signal. Now, the safe beeped. The lock clicked. You are terrifying, I murmured, pulling the heavy door open. I'm motivated. He replied, find the ledger. Look for payments to the Red River Pack. They're the only ones who cultivate hybrid wolfsbane. I rifled through stacks of cash and blackmail photos. And then, I found it. A black leather binder. I flipped it open. Invoice Project Sleeper. Item Tetrodotoxin B. Aconite suspension. Buyer J. Blackwood. Co-signatory S. Blackwood. Stepmother. I got it. I hissed. My hands shaking. It's all here. The dates match your surgery. They've been paying for a monthly supply for 3 years. Get out, Roman commanded. His voice suddenly sharp. Ivy. Get out now. The front gate sensor just tripped. Julian is back early. Panic. Cold and sharp. Spiked in my chest. I shoved the ledger into my waistband. I scrambled toward the desk to climb back up to the vent. But I froze. Voices in the hallway. Laughing. Closer. He's at the door. I whispered. Backing away. I can't make the vent. Hide. Roman barked. Under the desk. Now. I dove under the massive mahogany desk. Curling into a ball. Pressing my hand over my mouth to stifle my breathing. The door swung open. The lights flicked on. I'm telling you. The Omega is hiding something. Julian's voice drifted into the room. He sounded drunk. Slurring slightly. I saw her coming out of the West Wing yesterday. She's sleeping with the cripple. Let her. Another voice sneered Sloane. It's not like he can perform. What are they going to do? Braid each other's hair. They laughed. It was a cruel, ugly sound. I watched Julian's polished dress shoes walk across the rug. He stopped inches from the desk. Wait, Julian said. The laughter stopped. The painting. It's crooked. My heart stopped. I had forgotten to straighten the portrait. Someone's been in here. Julian growled. I heard the click of a gun safety being disengaged. Come out, I know you're in here. He was walking around the desk. He was going to see me. I squeezed my eyes shut. Preparing to die. Screech. An ear-splitting alarm shattered the silence. The fire sprinklers overhead exploded, dousing the room in a torrent of water. What the hell? Sloane screamed. Fire alarm, Roman's voice yelled in my ear. Barely audible over the siren. I hacked the main safety grid. The doors are unlocking automatically for evacuation. Disrun. Ivy run. In the chaos. With Julian cursing and wiping water from his eyes. I scrambled out from under the desk. I bolted for the door, slipping on the wet floor. Right past them. Hey, Julian shouted, firing a shot blindly into the hallway. The bullet chipped the stone wall next to my head. I didn't stop. I sprinted down the corridor, adrenaline burning my lungs. Roman's voice guiding me through the service exits until I burst out into the cool night air. Back in the office. The sprinklers finally sputtered to a stop. Julian stood in the center of the soaked room, his chest heaving. The safe was empty. The ledger was gone. He roared in frustration, sweeping the expensive ornaments off his desk. Then, he stopped. Something glittered on the wet carpet. A small, cheap object that didn't belong in a room full of gold and mahogany. He bent down and picked it up. It was a silver earring. A tiny, tarnished hoop with a fake blue stone. Julian held it up to the light, his lips curling into a predatory sneer. He had seen this earring before. He had seen it dangling from the ear of the mousy little janitor who wiped his floors. Ivy, he whispered. He closed his fist around the jewelry, crushing it. Found you. The solstice hunt is supposed to be a celebration. It's an archaic tradition dating back to the founding of the city. A day where the Blackwood Pack pretends to honor the old ways by stripping off their bespoke suits and running through the forest like the predators they are. But as I stood at the edge of the clearing, shivering in the dawn mist, it didn't feel like a party. It felt like an execution. The air smelled of wood smoke, roasting meat, and the metallic tang of adrenaline. The entire pack was gathered, 300 of the city's most powerful wolves watching Alpha Marcus sit on his wooden throne. And standing next to him, preening like a peacock in hunting leathers, was Julian. He held something up to the light, a tiny flash of silver. "My earring. We have a problem," Julian announced, his voice smooth and projecting easily to the crowd. "We have a spy in our midst. Someone stealing family secrets." He turned his eyes to me. They were cold, dead things. Ivy Vance. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked at Roman. He was sitting in his chair a few feet away, his face a mask of stone. But I saw the tendon in his jaw jump. He was ready to kill. "However," Julian continued, smiling the kind of smile that shows too many teeth, "my brother, in a show of incredible family loyalty, has vouched for her. He claims she was acting on his orders. So, to prove that Roman is still a capable leader, that he is still one of us, he has volunteered to join the hunt." The crowd went silent. Then, a ripple of cruel laughter broke out. A paraplegic man in a wheelchair navigating the Ironwood ravine. It was impossible. The terrain was a nightmare of roots, mud, and steep drops. "If Roman completes the hunt," Julian said, leaning down to whisper in his brother's ear, loud enough for the front row to hear, "then the girl is innocent. If he fails, well, nature takes its course." It was a death sentence, and we both knew it. Roman looked at me. He didn't look at his father. He didn't look at the laughing crowd. He looked at me and gave a single, imperceptible nod. "We survive." The starting horn blew. The first hour was a grueling, silent hell. The other wolves shifted immediately, tearing off into the woods on 4 paws, leaving us behind in the dust. We were alone. The forest was dense and unforgiving. The rain from the night before had turned the trail into a sludge of thick, sucking mud. I pushed the wheelchair until my arms burned, my boots slipping on wet rocks. Roman used his immense upper body strength to help, gripping the wheels and forcing them over gnarled roots, his biceps straining against the fabric of his tactical shirt. "Leave me," Roman gritted out, wiping sweat and mud from his eyes. We had only covered 2 miles. "You can make it to the border." "Ivy, go." "Shut up," I panted, heaving the chair over a fallen log. "We finished this." We were moving into the deep ravine now, the shadows lengthening as the trees grew thicker. The silence of the woods was heavy, unnatural. And then, I heard it. A snap. It wasn't a twig. It was metal. The front right wheel of the titanium chair didn't just hit a rock. It hit a snare wire hidden in the leaves, a tripwire pulled tight. The axle sheared with a sound like a gunshot. The chair pitched forward violently. Roman didn't have a chance. He was thrown out, tumbling down the short, muddy embankment. He hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop in a bed of dead, wet leaves. "Roman," I screamed, sliding down the mud after him. He was lying on his back, staring up at the canopy. He tried to push himself up, his arms shaking, but his legs were dead weight, tangled uselessly in the underbrush. He looked at the broken wreckage of the wheelchair at the top of the slope. It was destroyed. "That's it," he whispered, his voice hollow. End of the line. Then came the sound. It wasn't distant anymore. It was close, maybe 200 yards. And it wasn't the sound of a hunt. It was the sound of a pack closing in for the kill. These weren't just any wolves. They were Julian's enforcers. The ones paid to make accidents look like tragedies. "They're coming," Roman said. The panic in his eyes wasn't for himself. It was for me. "Ivy, listen to me. They want me. If you run now, you can hide in the caves. Go." "That is an order." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had paid my sister's medical bills without asking. The man who had sat in the dark for 3 years because his own family wanted him erased. I looked at his broad shoulders, his helpless legs, and the fierce intelligence burning in his eyes. I made a choice. It was the stupidest, most reckless choice of my life. I didn't run away. I knelt down, turning my back to him. "Get on," I said. Roman froze. "What?" "Get on my back," I commanded, my voice shaking but loud. "Piggyback. Now, Ivy." "Are you insane?" Roman snapped. "I weigh 200 pounds. You're half my size. You can't carry me." I said, "Get on," I shrieked, desperation cracking my voice. The howls were closer now. I could hear the snapping of branches. "I am not leaving you here to die." Something in my voice, maybe the sheer, primal refusal to accept defeat, snapped him out of his shock. He dragged himself forward through the mud. He wrapped his arms around my neck. "This is going to hurt," he whispered in my ear. I gritted my teeth. I planted my boots in the soft earth. I grabbed his thighs, pulling his dead weight against my back. And then I screamed. It was a raw, guttural sound, tearing from my throat as I summoned every ounce of adrenaline, every scrap of strength I possessed from years of lifting heavy crates and scrubbing floors. I heaved, my knees buckled. My spine felt like it was going to snap. He was incredibly heavy. A crushing, suffocating weight pressing me into the earth. I swayed, vision spotting with black dots. "Put me down," Roman groaned, his chest pressing against my back. "Ivy, stop. You'll break your back. Hold on." I wheezed. I took a step, then another. I wasn't a warrior. I wasn't an alpha. I was a janitor. But right now, I was the only thing standing between Roman Blackwood and death. I walked. I carried the broken king through the mud. Every step was agony. My lungs burned like I had inhaled fire. My legs trembled so violently, I thought they would give out with every yard. Tears streamed down my face, cutting tracks through the dust and grime. But I didn't stop. Roman held on. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, inhaling sharply, and that's when the shift happened. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. Roman wasn't just holding on. He was listening. He could hear my heart hammering against my ribs like a war drum. He could smell the distress pouring off me, the scent of vanilla, rain, and sheer, terrified determination. He felt my body breaking to save his. For 3 years, the poison had built a wall between him and his wolf. A wall of numbness, a wall of ice. But seeing his mate suffer for him, feeling her tiny frame tremble under his weight, refusing to let him go, that didn't just crack the wall. It nuked it. The heat started at his chest where he was pressed against my back. It radiated through him, hotter than a fever, hotter than fire. "Ivy," Roman gasped. His voice sounded different, deeper, distorted. "Put me down." "No," I sobbed, stumbling over a root. Almost there. "Ivy, put me down now." It wasn't a request. It was a warning. The bushes in front of us exploded. A massive gray wolf burst onto the path. It was huge, standing nearly 5 feet at the shoulder, with fur the color of dirty ash and eyes glowing red with bloodlust. "Julian," he snarled, saliva dripping from his jaws. He didn't look like a brother. He looked like a monster. He crouched, muscles coiling to spring. My legs finally gave out. I collapsed forward. We hit the ground hard, Roman taking the brunt of the impact as he rolled to shield me with his body. We were a tangle of limbs in the mud. I looked up, gasping for air, waiting for the teeth to tear into my throat. Julian lunged, but he never made contact. A sound erupted from Roman's chest. It wasn't a human shout. It was a roar so loud it shook the rain off the leaves. It was a physical force. A shockwave of dominance that hit the air like a bomb. Kneel. The sheer power of the alpha voice slammed into Julian mid-air, swatting him aside as if he were made of paper. The gray wolf yelped, crashing into a tree trunk and sliding to the dirt. I looked at Roman. He was pushing himself up. Not with his arms. His legs were shaking. His muscles were spasming violently, fighting the last dregs of the toxin, forcing damaged nerves to fire by sheer, overriding willpower. With a groan that sounded like tearing metal, Roman Blackwood stood up. He stood tall, 6'3" of pure, unadulterated rage. His eyes were no longer gray. They were solid, molten gold. He wasn't fully healed, he wobbled, leaning heavily against a tree to stay upright, but he was standing. He looked down at the cowering gray wolf. "You wanted a hunt," Brother Roman snarled, his voice layering human speech over a wolf's growl. "You found one." The forest went silent, not the quiet of peace, but the terrified silence of prey realizing a predator has entered the room. Julian, the golden boy, the usurper, was no longer snarling. He was whimpering. The sheer weight of Roman's alpha voice had swatted him out of the air like a fly, forcing his wolf into immediate, biological submission. He lay in the dirt, belly exposed, whining. I looked up, gasping for air, mud caking my eyelashes, and I saw the impossible. Roman was standing. He swayed, grabbing a tree branch for support. His legs were trembling violently, the muscles spasming as the mate bond burned through the last dregs of the neurotoxin like a wildfire. I could hear his bones cracking, realigning, snapping back into place after 3 years of atrophy. It must have been agony, but he didn't scream. He just stared down at his brother with eyes of molten gold. "Shift," Roman commanded. The gray wolf shimmered and broke, bones rearranging until Julian lay naked and shivering in the wet leaves. He looked up at his brother, eyes wide with a terror I had never seen before. How Julian stammered. "The poison." "You shouldn't be able to move. The poison put the man to sleep," Roman said, his voice a low, lethal vibration that shook the leaves. He took a step forward. It was a lurching, ungraceful step, but it was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. "But when you hunted her, you woke up the beast." Rustling in the bushes signaled the arrival of the others. Alpha Marcus, the elders, and the rest of the hunting party emerged from the trees. They stopped dead. The sight before them defied everything they knew. The cripple was towering over the air, while the invisible Omega lay at his feet. "Roman," Alpha Marcus breathed, looking at his son's legs, then at the gold in his eyes. Roman didn't bow to his father. He didn't even look at him. He reached down and grabbed Julian by the throat, hoisting him up until his toes dragged in the mud. "He bought the toxin from the Red River Pack," Roman announced, addressing the crowd. "He and your wife have been poisoning my food for 3 years. The ledger is in his safe." Roman leaned in close to Julian's face, baring his teeth. "You thought I was broken." "Brother, I wasn't broken. I was just sharpening my teeth." He dropped Julian into the mud like a sack of trash. The hunt was over. The hierarchy had shifted in a single heartbeat, but Roman didn't care about the crown. He turned his back on the Alpha, on the elders, on the entire pack. He turned to me. I was a mess, bruised, bleeding, covered in grime. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work. Roman reached down. His hand was steady now, warm, He pulled me up, and for a second, he swayed, his weight heavy against me. I caught him, and he caught me. We held each other up. He reached out and gently wiped a streak of mud from my cheek with his thumb. Ignoring the hundreds of eyes watching us, "The selection is over," Roman declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. He looked at me with a fierce, possessive adoration. "I have found my Luna." The crowd dropped to their knees, not out of politeness, but out of instinct. They were bowing to the true power. "Let's go home." "Ivy," he whispered. We began the long walk back. He was limping, leaning heavily on my shoulder, but his head was high. We were battered. We were exhausted, but we were unbroken. They say love is weakness in the world of wolves. They say sentiment gets you killed. But as we walked out of that forest, leaving the old regime in the dirt behind us, we proved them wrong. In the Blackwood Pack, love isn't a weakness. It's the only weapon that matters. What would you do if you found out your family betrayed you? Would you forgive them? Or would you take revenge like Roman? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of karma, betrayal, and rising against the odds, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to share this with a friend who loves a good underdog romance. And subscribe to Moonfire Tales for more stories where the quiet ones bite back. See you in the next story.